You're listening to Pararsearch Radio, news, views and reviews from the world of the paranormal from across the UK and beyond. Find us on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web. Pararsearch UK Radio. Pararsearch Radio, broadcasting to the UK and beyond.
The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Pararsearch Radio or its affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised. You're listening to Kerry Greenaway and Mark Manley on the Dark Mirror Paranormal Show, only on Pararsearch Radio.
A good evening and welcome to the Dark Mirror Paranormal Show. My name is Kerry Greenaway and as always on a Friday evening I'm joined in the studio by the lovely Mark Manley. Good evening, Mark.
My name's Kaz Grooney. Mark Manley's over there.
And the lovely Kaz Rooney. Little confused already.
Hello, good evening. Hello. Yes, it is moi.
Oh, really? Oh my God, he's on fine form tonight, everybody. Good evening, Kaz.
Good evening.
Jesus, it's going to be a fun show tonight, I can tell.
Yeah, he's on fire tonight and we've just started.
Oh my God, oh my God. Okay, so our topic tonight on this lovely, beautifully freezing Friday spring evening is Indigo children.
Yeah.
It is, and that's something that because Lindsay's going down to Somerset, and she's going to be listening to this on there because our son Damien, as you know, had all of these problems or gifts, as you'd like to say, that Indigo children have.
Wow! So, and I know Kaz as well. You've got a child, haven't you?
Yeah, my son has ADHD and autism.
And
same as Damien.
This is quite I don't want to say controversial, but it can be quite a controversial topic, can't it?
Yeah.
It can, because some people I find, and I suspect Kaz is the same, I find some people are using it as complete I'll be open and honest. They use it as
as an excuse rather than saying the child has a medical ailment. They would rather say the child is gifted.
Yeah, and also I've been looking this last week. I've been looking at a lot of stuff online about Indigo children, and I'm going to put in inverted quotes with my fingers. Damn, it fell off. About star children. So to me, it's some of it is people just using these poor kids to sell books.
Yeah.
But there may also be something in it as well, so I will sit directly on the middle of that fence with that one.
I was going to say, it can be quite a controversial topic, but it's still one that's very interesting. Now, okay, so let's have a look at this particular topic, Indigo children. It's quite a new age term, isn't it? It's quite new.
Yeah.
It started in the 80s and 90s, actually.
Yeah.
Okay.
There were a lot of... I've looked into quite a bit of this. I told you I would. There was a lot of... all I will say is there was a lot of, and again, air quotes, alien abductions.
Jesus.
And women getting pregnant, and these women giving birth to children who turned out to be Indigo children. And that's where the star children and all that sort of stuff came from.
Well, there's
three. But where did it originally come from? Where did it originally come from?
I was going to say there are three main
terms. I would have thought
their
mums jubblies.
There are three main terms that are currently being bandied about in the New Age world. First of all, you've got indigo children, then you've got crystal children, and then star children. So there are three main terms that are being used.
Crystal children is basically associated with autism, primarily.
Yes. Yeah. There does tend to be slightly differences in regards to conditions as to what you would class in a New Age way, to be fair, right? But we're looking at indigo. So, Kaz, tell me the origins of indigo.
The actual term indigo children came from a parapsychologist called, and she was also a psychic, called Nancy Ann Tapp, even. She published a book, and that is where it all came from, because the way she looked at it, she could see auras. You know how some people can see auras very easily, some people have to train to. Well, she could see auras, but she noticed between the 60s and 70s a large number of children being born who had an indigo aura. And it seemed sort of unusual, but she brought this book out because she says that everyone has a life colour or a life aura that they are born with, and that stays with them until they die. And these children were being born with this indigo aura, and that's where indigo children come from.
See, normally when we talked auras before, we talked about it changing and evolving as you change in emotion and situation and stuff, didn't we? Whereas this is a life aura, which is
a life aura.
So it's a different thing.
It's the life aura. The way she's putting it is the life aura. You're born with this aura, and this aura is going to stay with you consistently the whole way through your life. No matter what else changes, you will stick with this one aura. So this aura is going to have specific traits. So when all these children were being born with this indigo coloured aura, they had specific traits, and that's where she started researching it.
I wonder if she had data to back up her findings, from these indigo. No,
because he was a character in Star Trek, Kerry. Don't be silly.
Who? Data.
Data.
I liked him.
Yeah.
Weirdly.
Well, you would. He was a robotic man that could go for hours. Hello.
I knew you were going to say that. Anyway, back on topic. Where were we? I've lost my thread already. God.
The way she put it out is the children that were being born with this indigo aura are slightly complex, but they seem to have a spirituality and a knowledge that other people don't have.
That's right. They think that they have supernatural gifts.
They are gifted in a way that other people would strive to get to, but they just seem to be born with it. Put it that way.
They seem to be, don't they? I mean, in the old days, wouldn't that have just been called like a free spirit?
Can I just...
Maybe.
Right, this is where I have a problem with some of the things with indigo children, because I mean, like Kaz, we've had children with ADHD, Asperger's, autism, but then you've got these people here, and I will quote you from a lady called Tracy Taylor, who is an artist and an experiencer, whatever that is. This is what she has to say about star children, indigo children, all right? And I'll quote this, and this is where I have a difficulty with this stuff. All right?
Yeah.
There is a race of beings upon the planet, increasing in number. Although visually and physically indistinguishable to most humans, they are the bringers of light and are here to guide the awakening of terrestrial consciousness. The new children are born without programming and will bring about a global awakening.
Hmm.
And the programs and the programming she's on about is such as ADD, ADHD, Asperger's.
Yeah.
When I mean, obviously, working in the field that I work in, I come across a lot of parents that come to me and say, "Have you got a crystal that can calm them down?" That kind of scenario. And the way I put it is, they're actually operating on a different frequency to normal society.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So they're not able to conform to normal society as we would class it, regardless of how you would class normal. Yeah, so they're just operating on a different frequency. So what you actually have to do is work to help raise your frequency and slightly lower their frequency. So you find a working arrangement between the two of you. So you look at how you do things. You can't expect them to conform naturally like most children would.
That's right, yeah.
Right.
And they get frustrated
Yeah.
very, very quickly.
Exactly,
Very
because
easily.
they're going to get very frustrated. You get frustrated with them, they get frustrated with you, and it causes discord. Yeah, so
Yeah.
you actually have to find a working arrangement that's different from the socially acceptable ways of working to get that frequency more aligned with each other. That's how I put it. In regards to crystal, working with crystals in regards to working between people, obviously. But I also see that the human race is always evolving.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have evolved for thousands and thousands of years. So why would we stop evolving? And maybe these children are just an evolutionary step further than necessary. Or is it a more society-driven thing with all the chemicals that are being put into our food that is driving this? I don't know.
No.
I'm not that researched on this to know the answers to those questions.
Yeah.
There is another one. There is as well. There.
What, that they are actually
we
children
only use
born...
2/3 of our... Hang on, I wasn't even going to say that. No, there is the other one that we only use 2/3 of our brain, or just over half it, I should say, and the rest of it we don't use. Is this, as you were just saying about evolving, is this basically where we used to use it? The DNA was locked off, and now on certain people it's being unlocked. Because if you go down the route of people saying these children are different, so they must be star children, they must be this, that, and the other. I got one hand and 1 foot. Does that make me I come from the planet Uranus or something? Well, probably does know me. Probably does know me, but you see what I mean. You see what I mean? If the brain is, if we're constantly evolving, and these kids, because these kids are incredibly gifted. Damien, bless him, he was really good at art. You know, and he was really good with mechanical and stuff like that. Brilliant with it. So
Warren's
if
good
these
at tech
parts of the
stuff.
brain, yeah, exactly. And if these parts of the brain are way better than ours, and all these bits of the brain that we don't use are being awakened in these kids, then who's to say it's not a part of human evolution and not all this alien nonsense?
So I would more go with human evolution than alien.
Yeah.
But then,
to
to be fair, you know me and the alien thing. Oh my God, no. I will always go more.
I love the alien stuff.
I know you do.
I love the alien stuff, but
Can
I
just throw a
find
little
it
spanner
hard.
in the works here?
Kaz?
Right, I've got to throw a little spanner in the works here, because it's all very well saying, oh, it might be human evolution, but if it was evolution, these children have all got a chemical missing in their brain. Why is a chemical missing in the brain? If we're evolving...
Because if we're evolving, we might not need it.
I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure.
Or is it, like I said, born from the society we live in with the chemicals that we put in our system that's actually causing a imbalance? So these children are not able to produce that because of the chemicals that are being introduced into us through food, airborne particles, whatever. You know, who knows?
But this is the thing, Kerry. They have found out that ADD and ADHD is actually genetic.
Yeah, but what
Yeah,
you
it
ate
is,
when
yeah,
you was
yeah.
a
It is
child...
genetic.
When you look at the 1970s, when fast food came in, when women were going more out to work, the fast food market literally hit massively, and we had microwaves come in, we had all those kind of foods come in. Who's to say that back in those days, bearing in mind, that's a few years ago now.
Yeah, that's true.
50 years ago.
I'll tell you what, to go with what you're saying, I'll give you a little fact. The indigo energy pattern exists in over 95% of the children born in the last 2 years, and they reckon that the indigo colour is going to replace all other colours. But is it food stuff? Is it modern technology? Or is it a bit of that, a bit of evolution, and maybe a throwback to precursors coming through the DNA?
Oh my God, you even got precursors in there.
That's my job. And, as we all know, there were lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of different types of hominids thousands of years ago. They all humped each other mercilessly. They all interbred. Is it part of that coming back out as well?
I would go more, look at the last 50 years in regards to food production And in my opinion, this is just my opinion, I would go in the last 50 years, the change in food production and also the explosion in the human birth rate. Well, you know, when you look at the chemical, I would go with chemicals. I always go chemicals on this, to be fair.
Right. But that's your choice. And if
that's
you
my
want to
opinion.
Do that, you do that. But you're not supposed to rave anymore. You're too old for that. Right.
Oh, damn it.
What I was going to say is...
I'm never too old to rave. Come on, surely.
These kids that are born with all these Indigo children, they're all born for some reason after the year 1978. And if I read out a list of traits to help you recognise, I'm sure Kaz will agree with this, and any of you out there listening who've got children with, ADHD, ADD, Asperger's, whatever, I'm sure you'll find some of these fit in perfectly. But it doesn't mean that they're Indigo children. But here we go.
Yeah.
Some of the traits, all right? Strong-willed, yes.
Yeah.
Born after 1978. Headstrong, creative with an artistic flair for music, jewellery making, poetry, etc. Taylor's very good at that as well, but she's just an idiot sometimes.
Particularly if you give her coffee.
Prone to addictions. An old soul as if they're 13 going on 43. Yeah, that describes Taylor as well. Intuitive or psychic, possibly with a history of seeing angels or deceased people. An isolationist, yeah, I do agree with that. Either through aggressive acting out or through fragile introversion. They do prefer have their own company, a lot of them I found. Independent and proud, even if they're constantly asking you for money. Possess a deep desire to help the world in a big way. Wavers between low self-esteem and grandiosity. Bores easily, yes. I'd say you know that one, don't they? They get bored so quickly.
Oh, God.
Has probably been diagnosed as having ADD or ADHD. Yep. Prone to insomnia, restless sleep, nightmares, or difficulty fear of falling asleep. Damien was a nightmare for going to sleep. He really was. Has a history of depression or even suicidal thoughts or attempts. That I'm not going to go into. Looks for real, deep, and lasting friendships. Yes. Easily bonds with plants or animals. Yeah, because bonds with the animals just like that. Vastly intelligent and great with technology.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of that I agree with. Some of it I don't, but a lot of it I do.
There is one trait that I don't agree with, and I was actually discussing this with Kerry the other night, which is a lot of them are empathic. But if you have a child with autism, you know that a child with autism doesn't get emotion. Doesn't pick up emotion, doesn't. So I don't understand how they can be empathic. That's the one thing I have a big problem with.
The only thing I looked into that a little after our discussion, and it showed, from what I read, it showed that the processing of how they process that emotion was completely different from how we would normally process emotion.
Mm-hmm.
So although we are going in regards to, we would judge it as empathic, being empathic ourselves, to a certain degree. We would judge it from that perspective. If you've got these other traits going on, you're processing things at a different level. So although you may not be displaying it in the way that a normal empath would, you are still feeling that. You're just not able to display it in the normal way that we would, or so that's the only thing I could find on that was the processing methods that they internalise it rather than externalise.
Okay.
And that became, when I was looking at that, but again, it didn't seem to be
there's this thing as well with autistic kids. I don't know if a lot of people know this, but autistic kids cannot lie. They cannot tell a lie. Honest to God, they can't. If they get accused of doing something,
we found the opposite.
Well, with what I have found is,
it's such a grey area, though, isn't it? When they're trying, again, you're looking at a Western medicine that is trying to categorise and put in boxes conditions, mental, and I use the word mental. And I don't mean that as in a bad way. I'm just, how your brain works, box, and it's a very westernised look at how that's categorised. So, you display a certain amount of traits, you're stuck in autism box. You display another set of criteria and you're stuck in the autism, and then you display another stat and you ADHD, and then you know what I mean. And I hate that, because I hate boxes for people, because people are so unique and so individual, and I don't. Yes, there are those conditions. We're not sitting here saying that there aren't those conditions, because obviously there are many people having problems with that. But I've also heard that everybody displays certain traits on the autistic spectrum.
Yeah, we all do.
Well, I mean,
but there's a new one as well. There's diamond children as well, which I've just read some of it, and I'm like, no, just stop the silliness. No.
Diamond children. I've not heard that term used.
I haven't heard that one.
Diamond children. Yeah, I'm looking at it now.
Where did you find that one?
I am on theawakenedstate.net.
Oh, okay.
These children are predicted to be the next wave of children after the rainbow children, starting in 2010-2011. Diamond children are also said to be first timers here on Earth. There are already a few born, but still need the Earth's energy to shift to a high frequency in order to accommodate the critical mass of diamonds. I don't know.
There's a serious I don't know there. Right, well, Ashley is in the chat room. Good evening, Ashley Nib. So he says, so could it not be in line with the technological evolutions? Bearing in mind, technology has advanced so quickly, so fast, which could be a greater relation to how our minds focus and work. Although he does say that chemicals is a reasonable suggestion too, just saying.
The thing is, I mean, we had this discussion the other night about chemicals. What I would like to point out for anyone who has children with ADHD or autism or whatever else, as you will know, it's a very long, drawn-out process.
True. To
actually get a diagnosis. And you will go through we will take out this food and we'll take out that food and we'll... increase omega-3, we'll do this, do that, and it makes absolutely no difference. The child still has this chemical missing in their brain, but it is not easy in any way, shape or form to get a diagnosis. So it took me 8 years to get Warren diagnosed with ADHD.
Wow.
Warren was not diagnosed autistic until 2 months before his 18th birthday.
Wow.
Does it take that long to get statemented?
Really, he hasn't been statemented. Right. He literally just got diagnosed as autistic. We were on the waiting list for 7 years before he got assessed. So there you go.
Gosh.
It's not an easy process to do. So I don't buy into the chemical thing, if you know what I mean. I don't put down things.
Well, if it was a chemical thing, surely they'd be able to just do... and this might be an incredibly naive point of view. If it's a chemical, lacking chemical, surely there's a test, like just blood test or, DNA test or a stem cell test or something kind of test that they could do to find that missing chemical, which should make diagnosis easier if it was just a missing chemical.
No, because you would have thought look at behavioural patterns as well.
But if it's all down to a missing chemical, surely they would be able to test for that missing chemical.
No.
I don't know. I could be completely naive. I could be a completely naive situation going on over here, because I'm lucky enough never to have actually had to deal with this particular situation.
Yeah.
You've also got to remember that stuff as chemicals that would affect us in a certain way, well, a lot of these children, it affects them totally different. When Damien was alive, he used to have the it was a controlled substance. It was the equivalent of speed, and he'd have to have that in the morning.
Ritalin?
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't Ritalin. He couldn't have Ritalin because it didn't work as well. This stuff was proper lock up your daughter stuff. I can't remember what it's called, but he used to have to have that.
No.
And he'd go. Well, he'd go. No, that's my kind of drug.
I know. I was like, I don't know. You used to lock up your daughter kind of stuff.
No.
I'm just chucking drugs out now.
Well, no, what I mean is, he would bounce off the ceilings, and as soon as you gave him his tablet, he'd be a normal person. Whereas if I took that tablet, I'd be bouncing off the ceiling for about 36 hours. You know?
Yeah.
Basically, Ritalin is speed. We had this conversation before, didn't we, about Ritalin being speed? And Kerry was quite taken back by that because she went, well, if it's to calm them down, why you give them speed?
I couldn't understand that.
I was like that. Yeah, I was like that.
But then having said that,
it just works.
But you say that. Having said that, when I was looking into for a client in regards to crystal energy, when I researched it, red crystals, which are energizing crystals generally, and I would have said to calm someone down, you wouldn't give them that. You would go for something completely different. But it was advised to give them red crystals.
Yeah.
You know, a form of red crystal like sardonyx or, garnet or something like that. That actually would have a more beneficial effect to calm them down than going for the calming down kind of crystals. You know what I mean? So it actually shocked me when I researched the crystal side of it as to what you would actually give them. And it was weird.
That drug was called what?
Methylphenidate hydrochloride.
Methylphenidate hydrochloride.
Which is Ritalin.
Which is Ritalin, yeah. That was mine, but I didn't think it was. Yeah,
That's just a generic name.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So you give them speed, they calm down. Give us speed, and I'm bouncing off the walls.
Yeah,
bouncing off the walls. Anyway, let's get back to indigos, because this is a really new age kind of term. And as I said, we did say right at the top of the show, it's quite a controversial topic because it does cover or does cross over into these kind of conditions. This is it. There have been loads and loads of movies, books and research done on this subject. And indigo children, or these new age terms that are coming through, is, I don't know, I find it very difficult to balance in my head, quite frankly, because having never dealt with it, it's very hard until you've walked in someone's shoes. Until you've been through that experience yourself, it's very hard to make a judgment. I'm not going to sit here and make a judgment because I have not been through that experience. But going through that kind of experience must be incredibly difficult as parents.
They're hard work, but they're work. Don't get me wrong. It's your kids. You love them, worth it, this, that and the other. But they are hard work. And it depends on the severity of the... it depends on the severity of the ADD, ADHD, autism, this, that, and the other, you know?
Okay, so going on the factor that possibly, take it on the scenario that possibly you had an indigo child, not a child with a medical condition.
Okay.
What did you take any steps on a spiritual perspective, from the new age perspective on this? Did you take any steps? Because there are certain things that they say you should do with an indigo child to make it easier. So like keep all technology away from them in their bedrooms, paint their rooms a certain colour, keep nature very, very close into the environment that they're in, not expect them to conform to society's rules and regs. Do a lot of spiritual work, like grounding work, taking them for nature walks, that kind of thing. Did you do any of those kind of steps? I'm sure you did. Yeah, I'm sure you tried everything and anything.
We tried everything.
Damien, we've tried all that sort of stuff, but if you took the technology away and this, that and the other, my God, there would be trouble. Wasn't all that fussed about nature. Yeah, wasn't fussed about nature. Loved his BMXing. Anything like that, anything that involved a risk and lots of jumps and this, that and the other, and the risk of hurting themselves, he'd always do that. Always taking things apart, always putting them back together again. Very clever mind.
The thing I have found with Warren is he's always been very aware of spirit since he was about 2 or 3. Since he could tell us, we knew he was aware of spirit. And he's never, even though he has Ritalin to control his ADHD, that hasn't taken away from that. And he's 20 years old now, and he's still very sensitive to spirit.
I was going to say, did you find them more spiritual?
We didn't have that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you met Damien, didn't you, Kerry?
Yeah, I did. I mean,
Yeah. And you spoke to him on his own, so I don't know anything about the spiritual side, but you do.
the thing I
would've
found
thought.
with Damien when I spoke to Damien was he was quite withdrawn because he didn't know me. So he wouldn't necessarily, he wouldn't connect to me immediately. When I started talking to him about spirit, and when I started talking to him about my way of life in regards to my spiritualism and stuff like that, he actually showed more interest than he did in anything else I spoke about. So like, you had the cats and the dog and stuff like that. So I started on what I would have classed common ground to try to connect a link. But when I actually got into the spiritual side, he actually started to open more to me. I didn't get long with him at that time because, there was a lot of people around and stuff like that. But he showed that interest, which before he wouldn't engage in eye contact and stuff like that. So when I was going, we were talking about Patch the dog, and, I've got a dog called Marley, blah, 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 trying to find a connection with him. But when I started talking, and it wasn't at that point, and which I thought it would be, it was actually when I started talking about spirit and spiritualism and stuff like that, he actually started to look at me, and it had a very disconcerting look. When he looked you in the eye, it was very disconcerting. It was almost like he was examining your soul.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Which, for me doesn't bother me because I'm used to that. With in the realms that I work in, I'm used to that kind of scenario. But that can, for somebody who isn't spiritually evolved or awakened, or whatever term you want to look at it as, that could be quite intimidating because it's a very specific look. It's a very deep look, and that's what I found with Damien. It was very, very deep, more deep look than I've ever had from that age range before. And I don't shy away from that, whereas a lot of people would have. It was quite intimidating if you didn't know what you were dealing with. So in a funny kind of way, when they talk in regards to an evolved soul or a change in frequency, I can understand why a lot of people would be intimidated by the behaviour traits of that kind of character, because it is incredibly disconcerting when you get faced with that if you've not come across that before. But I say,
so you also want to know all about you and all about the ins and outs of things and this, that, and the other.
I mean, he asked me some really deep questions from what I recall. It's quite a while ago now. But from what I recall, he actually went deep really quickly. And it was like, that's unusual, particularly at the age that Damien was at that particular point. And say, I will answer. And then that's where you have to suspend your conditioning, your own social conditioning. Because in your head you're going, this kid is only what age would he have been when I met him? 12, 13, 14?
14.
Yeah, he would have been about 14, wouldn't he? When I had that conversation with him. And the questions he was asking was not what you would expect from a normal 14-year-old.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you're going, hang on. So your social conditioning is going, hold on, you're a 14-year-old kid. Why are you asking that? Whereas my spiritual self is saying, just answer him honestly. And it was the honesty that I was getting more than anything else. He needed that level of honesty, which I hate to use the word normal, but you wouldn't have even been asked those questions by a general 14-year-old. I mean, God, I've got an up and coming 14-year-old, and gee, trust me, they're not the questions that would get asked, Kaz.
Basically, I mean, 14-year-olds, the thing they're most worried about is Wi-Fi, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's
Wi-Fi and being horny.
Me, myself, and I.
Wi-Fi and going out with the friends and makeup and boys, and from my perspective, since I've got a 14.
Yeah,
from
it
the
becomes
boy's
very
point of view,
selfish.
14.
It becomes a very selfish point of view. You start becoming your own person. You start becoming, it's your world, and mum just serves you to serve food and wash your clothes, and becomes a bit of more of a slave than she's ever been before in your life.
Just a walking bank.
Or
basically.
a nag, bank,
And
service my needs. That's a typical teenager.
Yeah.
most 14-year-old boys basically just discover the joy of boobs and the joy of snacks.
I mean, as I say, some of the questions he was asking, and now I've got a very intelligent teenager to be very soon, who can be so intelligent, but doesn't, he's not ADHD. He's not, he's absolutely completely conforming to society's rules and regs quite happily. He's, what would be classed as society's normal. And he does ask me some really strange questions and come out with some really good points. I mean, many times he's helped me out. But Damien was so different from that at that age. And it was the soul-searching look he gave you. He looked more... It was very... As I say, if you didn't know, it would be very disconcerting because it was a lot deeper than normal. He's very... When people say it's special, I get that.
Yeah.
I wish I'd had longer.
Yeah, definitely.
I wish I'd had longer in that conversation with him at that time. I just wish I'd had longer time with him because I found him absolutely fascinating as a character, and that you don't get that very often. You don't get that very often in humans. Where you literally are looking at them and going, and it's a very, very weird sensation. It's a very, very strange sensation when you actually get into that one-on-one convo and you're having that discussion. Anyway, back to Indigo, because we keep going off topic a little.
Yeah.
Okay, so... most parents think their child is very special. That's a normal human...
Parent thing,
isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah,
Well,
it is.
There is, but I don't think that Indigo children are related to aliens, personally.
Blimey, you actually got a...
Well, no. I mean, because of everything that happened and being stepdad and everything, it's just no. It wasn't an alien thing. It was just unfortunate. It's just something that happens. Just one. I just need to swear at somebody. Just 1 second, please.
I love it. He's muted his mic and then swore at somebody.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, there are a lot of stories of alien hybrids. There's a lot of stories about alien fathers and this, that, and the other. And there's a lot of people out there trying to say the Indigo children have some sort of alien touch on them, and also, I mean, there's also look right here. This is a guy called Jason Andrews. He's what they say was an indigo child, and this is something that happened on his 4th birthday in Kent in 1987. Violent storm proceeded to sweep over the area. Jason apparently began to mutter a series of numbers, seemingly in a trance-like state. As the storm took hold of the house, the Andrews family, as the storm took hold, the house the Andrews family lived in began to shake, until Jason turned to his parents and calmly stated to them, "They are waiting for me. I have to go." He was 4 years old. The 4-year-old boy then went to exit the property before his father wrestled him away from the front door. Suddenly, as it began, the shaking of the house and the storm ceased, and Jason returned to his normal self. The family, until 8 years later, when Jason informed them that since that day he had been abducted by strange beings that would come to his room and take him to some kind of operating table. His mother, Anne Andrews, along with UFO researcher and author Jean Ritchie, came to the conclusion that Jason was an Indigo child. See, an author stated it, and that this was the reason the aliens had an interest in him. Jason himself now is in his 30s and states that he does have certain psychic and spiritual abilities.
What do you say about that one, guys? I mean, things that make you go, But authors are... Authors are... You would expect an author who was writing in that kind of context would really research their topic. You know, really... Oh, Kaz? The skepticism dripping from my voice.
To be fair, right, going back to the very beginning, we go back to Nancy and Tap. Sorry, I keep saying tape. Tap.
It's because it's TAPPE. That's because it's one of those, isn't it?
But she was a parapsychologist.
Yeah, she's not a fancy kind of woman, is she?
No, so
No, she's a psychologist, not a parapsychologist.
Sorry?
She's a psychologist, not a parapsychologist.
No, she was a parapsychologist.
Ah, there's a whole difference there, then, isn't there?
But anyway, I mean, it isn't like it was a flight of fancy, and it wasn't something. She had noticed this in the 60s and 70s, but she didn't write this book until into the 80s. 1989 is when she brought the book out.
I mean, loads of people have gone
so she's
away.
looked into it a long time before she's actually done this and said that we all have this life colour or life aura that we're born with and we keep. So she's done a lot of research into her work before she's actually done the book.
Yeah, I mean, we have Heather Prince on, and she was saying that was part of her journey as to what led her into what she does now, is because her son was, different, which I hesitate to use normal and different. I really do hesitate on that. And that's what she started researching, and he was indigo, and, she found certain colours worked, crystals worked, environment worked, going more... And he's gone on and had, a great career and got a relationship. He's very stable and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
No aliens in there whatsoever. But then we look at the case of Boriska, the indigo child. Oh, come on, Kaz. You brought this one to the table, so you're telling this one. Let's have a look at Boriska.
I have to. Anyway.
You brought it to the table, darling.
I've got another one as well for you in a minute.
Imagine a group of people sitting by the fire in the evening. The little fellow, about 7 years old, suddenly asked everyone to stop talking and listen to him. He said he was going to tell everyone his story of life on Mars and trips to Earth. Okay. Some adults did not listen to the boy and continued talking to each other, but the boy demanded all should be quiet, or he would not tell his story. When he was finally quiet, the little boy, with a round face and big eyes, wearing a t-shirt and a baseball cap, started telling his unbelievable story about the Martian civilization, about cities on Mars, Martian spaceships and flights to other planets. The boy, whose name is Boriska, or Boris, his name's Boris, was telling a story for as long as 90 minutes. 90 minutes, this
90 minutes, this 7-year-old.
7 years old.
Yeah.
See, again, commanding presence, sense of...
There's imaginative children, but that's stretching it a bit.
This is in Russia. Am I right in thinking this was in Russia? Would a 7-year-old Russian child be that aware? And I don't mean to be derogatory to any Russians at all. Be aware of Mars in that depth?
I don't think so. But it gets more interesting. What we know so far from the boy's stories is that he used to live on Mars in another life but was reborn on Earth. He said Mars used to be an inhabited planet, but the Martian civilization was destroyed as a result of a global catastrophe, and the red planet lost its atmosphere. Boriska said that Martians still live there in underground cities.
Wow.
See?
This keeps coming up. We might have to look at the Mars thing.
I was just...
Yeah.
I was literally just about to say that Mars thing, there's the file I've got, the CIA release file of the remote viewing, and basically that story that this, was it Boris Kiprianovich, he has described almost identically what this CIA remote viewer saw, and he was talking about when Mars was back millions of years ago, when Mars had life and an atmosphere and everything, and the two things seem to have certain aspects that are the same.
But haven't NASA looked at Mars in quite depth and said that it would have had a livable atmosphere, except that for some reason the atmosphere got stripped, and that's why it's as it is now.
But this is where Bariska gets interesting. You see,
it gets
because he is only a little boy. He said, "I used to live on Mars. There are people there, just like us here on Earth. They are taller, and they breathe carbon dioxide. There was a global disaster on Mars, and everything was scorched out." Asked, "How do you breathe oxygen?" He said, "I breathe oxygen because I now live here in this body of a human being, an Earthling, but we hate breathing air on Earth because it makes you grow old. On Mars, there are no old people. Everyone looks like they do here in their 30s.
Ooh, think of trees.
See, that's a good one as well.
Think of trees.
And then he's turned around and said, when he was asked why do our space rovers get destroyed when they try to reach Mars, he said, "Your stations bring harmful radiation to Mars, so they try to get rid of them."
He also talked about the layers and how the UFOs were built and everything, didn't he?
Yeah, he's
for a
very
7-year-old child.
That's a lot of knowledge. There's flights of
I mean, right.
and there's imagination, and there's something that's maybe not so easily explained.
I know, it is a weird
7-year-old boy.
Yeah.
A 7-year-old boy describing a UFO as this. There are 6 layers. The outer layer takes 25% of the durable material. These are words from a 7-year-old's mouth. The second layer takes 30% and is like rubber. The third takes another 30% and is again metal. 4% is a layer of magnetic properties, and he wrote these figures on a chalkboard. And he said, if you powered a magnetic layer with energy, the apparatus will fly all over the universe. 7-year-old boy coming out with that.
I do find that a little strange, I will say. But without knowing the background of the family and the people, the conversations that you might have overheard, you can't... It's a very subjective perspective.
There's also in like the remote regions of Russia, there's a lot of stories of alien visitations, star children, alien interacting with humans and this, that and the other. And it's been going on, written down and documented for centuries.
But you, like I say, I mean, okay, so we're told that this story happened around a fire overnight, and all the adults were talking, and the 7-year-old interrupted them and said, "Listen to me." You don't know what, up to that point in 7 years of his life, what conversations he's been privy to without those people really realising that, he might be playing with his toys or whatever.
Yeah.
But if they're having these in-depth conversations about those kind of subjects, you don't know what he's taken in. So it's very difficult. It's easy to judge on a standalone account of what happened on that night. But without background, without knowing the the background and the conversations that child was surrounded by, you have no idea of the psychological impact that might have had on that child.
Right. When he was 5, he struck his parents. Now, this is the thing. I think this is what started it all off, when his parents started realising there was something different about Bariska.
Yeah.
Okay. But when he was 5, he struck his parents by telling them about Prospering, the planet that died hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years ago. A beam struck the planet and broke it into pieces. The planet ceased to exist, but its inhabitants teleported themselves to the 5th dimension, which you call a parallel world. Planet Earth, as a living and reasonable creature, started accepting children of Prospering. So one can come across those people here on Earth who remember their past life on another planet and who think of themselves as aliens. He was 5 years old.
Yeah, exactly.
How
and
could
a lot
you
of the
know that?
things, Well, lots of the things he's describing, as you've just pointed out, how the hell would he know it? You know,
He's 5. A 5-year-old doesn't have the memory retention to remember all that.
No, but I remember at 5, my son was well into Ben 10, so would come out with some really strange things, only because of what he was watching on the TV.
Yeah, but...
I mean, God, this kid, Ben 10, had got this bracelet that was able to transform into various creatures from different planets, you know, and trust me, at one point he would only play in an American voice. And I'd be like, why are you talking American? You're not American. But that's because he's absorbing that from all the programs he's watching. You know, they were clearly American. So from here, I don't know. I mean, I'm no child psychologist or whatever. I mean, I'm not. But I do kind of want to know more about his background. Who knows? His father could be a cosmologist or, you know, a great conspiracy theorist, or you don't know this. Those facts, those points aren't detailed in the story. All you're hearing is what Bariska said, not the background information. And that doesn't...
Those things were looked into, though. Those things were looked into.
I'm sure they probably were.
Yeah.
And they seem quite unremarkable. The parents just seem like normal, everyday folk and quite taken aback by what's going on.
To be fair, that's true. But then quite often when children talk past lives, that is quite a trait, isn't it? Where the parents are like, where the hell did you get that from? You know, yeah. Coming from parents that aren't spiritually awakened at all, and they've got this girl that sells crystals and minerals and does tarot readings and stuff like that, and apparently, as my dad says, apparently she's quite good. You know, when he talks to his friends, you know, he's never had a tarot reader, but apparently, from what I've heard, she's quite good. And then goes, well, you know, try her out. You know, and when I start talking about the paranormal, he literally glazes over her eyes. You know, so where did I get that from? So, you know, when you start breaking it down, am I indigo? I don't know. I don't think I'm abnormal. Well, I know I'm a little abnormal, but not to the point where I class myself as an indigo or a crystal child or a star being or, you know, a reptilian shapeshifter. Although there are some that will argue at that point.
The jury's out on that one.
All I will say is, yeah, they may be right.
Thanks.
If you go, quoting from BGR.com, they're talking about the Kipianovich case. They basically said the same as Kerry there, and I quote, "It's a wild tale, and the timeline of the entire thing doesn't exactly match up with what we know thanks to space agencies and researchers from around the world, including Russia." In an interview, Kipianovich's parents note that thanks to his ability to read at a very young age, he would often read books on space and astronomy. Is it possible a 3-year-old brain studying space literature fabricated it all? Is that more likely than Mars being destroyed in a nuclear holocaust?
Don't know.
It's one of those again.
It is very difficult, isn't it? Ashley has put into the chat room, did he know, or was it possibly... Oh, I love this. He always goes for the telepathic interaction scenario. Or was there one or multiple possible streams of information? Until you know that, you can't... you can't judge the story by face value. Oh, God, face value. We keep coming back to face value, don't we?
Right, I understand what Ashley is saying, but forget the face value and forget everything working from a spiritual way, Kerry.
Okay, yeah.
Right,
okay.
Everything
back to spiritual.
Said, right, working on a spiritual sense, everything you've just heard, you would turn around and go, that's strange.
See, I put the crystal thing definitely because of the vibrations. Definitely the crystal thing because of the vibrations. Because I mean, if they operate at a totally different vibration to the rest of us, who's to say there isn't something akin to a paranormal nature, supernatural nature, something that's totally different anyway.
I think so. See, I bearing in mind, I work with crystals and minerals. I think that I believe, my personal self-belief is with crystals and minerals and natural energies, there are reasonable explanations. We just haven't found them yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely.
That's what I believe with that. But that's Earth. That's to do with the planet we live on here and now. Yeah. In regards to when you take it to something like Mars, yes, I can see the scientific perspective from NASA and stuff like that, and go, yeah, okay, so it might have had an atmosphere similar to Earth. It might have been at one point it had, running water, and maybe possibly would have been able to support life, but the atmosphere changed, which is why it's now the planet it is, which is why it's such an interest. But when you start looking at media influence like War of the Worlds, which basically were aliens from Mars coming to Earth and, waging war on us, basically, you don't know those influences that child's come across. So I have to say, it's interesting. It is fascinating to me.
Yeah.
And yes, I would be thoroughly, if my child was sitting there saying that, I'd be going, well, I'm a guide. I mean, even tonight at the dinner table, Ryder went, I'm an occultist. And I was like, no, he didn't. Sorry. He said, I'm a Satanist. I'm a Satanist. Oh, and I looked at him and I went, do you even know what a Satanist is? Now, that's only because, and I know exactly what it is. It's because I have books around about the paranormal. He knows I talk about the paranormal. Some of the things I talk about, I've got a box that's got symbols on that he knows are occult symbols. I've got crystals and minerals. God, my house is like littered with spiritualism, and it's like literally dripping in spiritualism and new age thinking and occultism, and I suppose you could even want to go demonologist, and depending on research projects I've got going on at the time, and different shows I do. He hears those shows, because he's obviously awake and I'm talking, so he might not listen to the whole show, but he'll hear bits and bobs, So he sits there at the dinner table and says that, and I'm like, I just look at him with raised eyebrows and go, do you even know what a Satanist is? You know what I mean? And then it sparks off a discussion. You don't know that could be the same kind of scenario that child was living in. You don't know, and that's the interesting perspective side of it.
Yeah, that's true.
Anyway,
there's also one last thing I do.
Oh, go on then, Mark. One last thing. So we're on 3 minutes.
It's a wacky one. They say that a lot of races out there on different planets, totally different to us, may not be carbon based, may be energy based. Who's to say if their planet did go boom, bang, whatever you want? If they were energy based, why could their energy not zap out into the cosmos and maybe land on a newborn child, an unborn child, one that's growing? You never know. It's just a wacky theory.
Yeah.
Who knows? I don't know. You don't know. I mean, we was talking to Dr. Terence Palmer the other night about attachment, spirit attachment, and even he brought alien attachment in there, alien entity attachment.
Exactly.
And I have to say, at that point, I was like, oh, I wasn't expecting that from somebody who's done a huge amount of research on that kind of topic. Do you know what I mean? I was saying, what kind of attachments would you say? And he came out with a whole litany, and alien attachment was one of them. And I was like, oh, okay, I kind of wasn't expecting that. But that's from the research he's done. And that was fascinating. So, anyway.
Well,
Kerry, can I make a point before we go?
Yes, of course you can.
Because I do feel it's really important. Although we've discussed this tonight, we're talking about indigo children, we have mentioned there has been research done that suggests there's a crossover between ADD, ADHD, autism and indigo children. We are not saying that those children with those conditions are indigo children. So if your child is undergoing assessment, please follow your doctor's directions.
Oh, I completely agree.
There's a lot of people who are going, oh, well, I don't need doctors now because my child's an indigo child. Yeah. We're not saying that. Please, if your child needs that kind of medical intervention, follow it. Get the assessments, and then
Oh, I
Then
completely
when you
agree
go-
with that point. Completely agree with that point. Well
I
done,
had to
Kez.
point that out because I didn't want Indy to go away going, oh, it's fine, he hasn't got ADHD.
He's Indigo. Yeah.
He's Indigo. I don't want you to do that.
Yes, I completely agree.
Exactly.
Sorry, that wasn't a strict voice at you guys. That was a strict voice at my child that's decided to descend, should we say, stairwell. Anyway, on that note, right, before we disappear for the evening, I don't know if you guys have heard, but we have a sharing and caring event that we're launching for this very day next year. There has been a tremendous response. Thank you so much. So far, the people that are involved, that are coming forward, showing interest in raising an event for this time next year is absolutely phenomenal. I want to remind you all, go to parasearchradio.com, register your event. You must register to be under the under the banner of Parasearch Radio for this event. You must go to parasearchradio.com and register what you're doing, who you are, what charity you're doing it for. Then you will get all the information you need to go forward with your event under the Parasearch Radio banner. So parasearchradio.com, go register, please do that. It's great. We love your support, we're loving your interest, but we need you to go and register at parasearchradio.com. There is a specific page where you can register. I'm going to share it into the chat room for you guys so you can find it easier. If I can find which tab it's under, there we go. Yeah, you must go and register your event. That way you are under the Parasearch Radio banner, and Parasearch
You get us
Radio
for a whole year.
You get us for a whole year. That's right.
A whole
Now,
year.
on that note, we're going to wrap the show up. On Sunday evening on the Spirit Dimension, I am talking to the beautifully, wonderfully intuitive life coach, Mrs. Lisa Michaels. She is absolutely amazing. Please join us. Be in the chat room. We are talking about how we can work with the energy that's around at the moment to manifest what you want in particular, and how anxiety and fear can hold you back from those particular ways of manifesting. Incredibly interesting lady. I'm using some of her techniques myself. I'm not ashamed to admit that. And I am finding changes and shifts in my own life that have been quite astonishing, quite frankly. Anyway, thank you guys for joining me.
Thank you.
Oh,
No problem.
question and answer this week on Sunday is with Penny.
Oh, it is.
Oh, Penny G. Morgan is question and answer session live on Facebook group page, Parasearch Radio group page. She is going live around 7 p.m, I believe. She's worried a little bit, I feel.
Oh, she shouldn't be worried.
I know,
Nice.
that's what I said. Well, everyone's lovely. You know, they'll go and ask her lots of lovely questions.
Yeah.
So, yeah, tune in for that on the Parasearch Radio group page, 9 p.m, Sunday, the Spirit Dimension with myself, Claire Hinks, and the lovely Lisa Michaels. On that note, guys, don't forget, go register your event, parasearchradio.com, and check out our new YouTube channel, Parasearch Radio. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget the subscribe bit, because that's really important. We love the subscribe. Anyway, on that note, love you all. Good night, guys. Good night.
Good night.
Thanks for listening, guys.
Good night.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to join us for more shows throughout the week. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and the World Wide Web to keep up to date with all the shows right here on Parasearch Radio.